First of all, thank you to Sparks for the opportunity to share the Torahs with you, and also for the opportunity to delve into this parsha, into the sugya of Neiros. After learning about the depth and the beauty of this mitzvah, I'm jealous of the fact that the women have such a schus every single Shabbos to be able to connect in such a deep way. Of course, we're going to share only a little bit of this parsha, but the idea tonight is to speak about the Penimiyus, the essence. Every single mitzvah has a neshama and a guf. The neshama is the spiritual essence of the mitzvah, and that needs a guf. It needs something to be contained within in this world, and that's the Hadlakas. So Mitzvos next week we'll discuss the Hadlakas of Neiros Shabbos, which is equally as beautiful. But tonight, to delve into the neshama of the mitzvah. And it's a very beautiful one. To begin, everything is b'hashgacha pratis. The fact that we're speaking about this mitzvah this week, Parshas Chayei, is extremely relevant. Chazal tell us that with the ptira of Sari Menu, so Yitzchak was very broken over the loss of his mother, and he didn't have any nechama until he met Rivka. And Chazal tell us that as soon as Rivka entered into the tent of Sarah, so the three special brachas that were always in the tent of Sarah returned. What was that? That the ner in the house of Sarah was lit from Shabbos to Shabbos. It never went out. Secondly, there was bracha metzuya be'isa, that in the dough of Sarah there was, I don't exactly know what the nature of that bracha was, but there was something about her challah, Sarah's challah. And then thirdly, the anan was kosher ala oihel, that there was always this anan, this special cloud, which was upon the tent of Sarah Imenu. And as soon as Rivka was brought into the tent of Sarah, so everything returned. And the Shlach Kodesh tells us that, and it's somewhat obvious, but the Tzaddik speaks it out, that these three special skulas in the house of Sarah are connected to three mitzvahs that an Isha is Aish to: Taras HaMishpacha, Chadla, and Hadlakas Haner. It's obvious just to make the connections. So we see that Rivka was initiated into being one of the Imahohos through these three signs. This is what Yitzchak was looking for. I'll be able to see if this is Sarah, if this is a woman who has been chosen by Kodesh Baruch Hu to become one of the Imahos. If she comes into the tent and I see that it's lichtig, it's lit up in this way, I know this is Sarah Imenu. It means to say that these three mitzvahs were so dear to Sarah, they were so makusher to Sarah, that the embodiment of the Imahos was exactly that. And that's this week's parsha. Not only do we see that by Sarah and Rivka, we see it by Rachel too. Because interestingly enough, we're all familiar with the Chazal, that Yaakov knew that Lavan was a swindler, he was a trickster, and he tried to pull a fast one on him. So Yaakov was engaged to Rachel, and he knew what to expect, so he gave Rachel simanim. These simanim would be a way for Yaakov to know that this was Rachel and it wasn't Leah. Of course, we know the story. What were these three simanim that Yaakov gave Rachel? We've heard it so many times, but have we been ever taught and told what these simanim were? So it says, one of the Bali Hatosos in his Perish ala Torah, he says that the simanim that Yaakov gave Rachel were exactly those three things: Taras HaMishpacha, Chadla, and Hadlakas Haner. And this was once again the very first interaction that Yaakov had with Rachel. Remember, he saw her once. He knew that this was his bashert. He didn't see her for 7 years, basically. And they made up these signs, and then they were going to see each other again at the chuppah. But this discussion took place before that. They were going to be married. Rachel was going to become one of the imos due to these three mitzvahs. So we see by Sarah, we see by Rivka, we see by Rachel. That means we see it by Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We see that by these three generations that they were holding in these three mitzvahs. It was so precious and so dear to them. So it's certainly at the roots of what it means to be an Isha Tzidkania, to follow the Messiah of the Imahos. And again, as is, as we've been told, that over these next few weeks, months, it will just be a discussion of Neiros Shabbos, but a part of a greater sugya of understanding these three special mitzvahs of Nashim Tzidkanios. So that's this week's Pasha, and so in Mela, it's a very opportune time to speak about these things. And already it's a tremendous chizuk for every Isha who has that tzchus to know that when an Isha is doing these three mitzvahs, but befrat, like tonight, speaking of Hadlakas Neiros, that in doing so, I'm part of a Messiah which goes back to the Imahos. How much do we know about the Imahos anyways? How many words does the Torah use? How many sentences do we have in Torah Shabbat Pad? Not too many. But we find by each and every one of these Imahos, this storyline. And that means that it's a special Messiah that every Isha can feel like when she's lighting Neiros Shabbos, that this is a gift from the Imahos Hatzidkanios. It was always very interesting to me, and I'm sure it is to all of you, the very unique minhagim when it comes to lighting Neiros Shabbos. The whole Seder Hadvarim, the whole ceremony. Of course, you all know that first a woman will light, and then go like this 3 times, cover her eyes, and make the bracha. Now, manishtana Hadlakas mikol hamitzvos, that normally the rule is that the bracha comes before doing the mitzvah. But in this case, the minhag is that the Isha, the woman, will first light and then make the bracha. It's not consistent with all the other mitzvahs. But on top of that, what's going on with this? Why are we doing this? It's so beautiful, it's so magical, but we have to ask ourselves, now that we question Chas v'Shalom, we do it, that's the Messiah. I'm sure the Imos did that too. But why? It could be 3 times this connected the 3 Imos which we mentioned. We'll try to give a different perspective of it in Mitzvah Hashem. But for what? Why are we doing this? We feel the Kedusha, we know that it's the right thing to do, but to try to understand it in Penimiyus, something which I was always wondering about, and learning the Sugya was an opportunity to delve into this in you. But on top of that, not just to go like this, but then to cover the eyes, and then to make the bracha. Where else do we cover our eyes when making the bracha? So there's so much which is out of the ordinary when it comes to Neiros Shabbos, so it gives us a lot to discuss in Mitzvah Hashem. So this will require us in Mitzvah Hashem to go pnimi, to go within, and to try to understand the essence of the big question: what is this or? What is this or? Is this an ordinary or? Where does it come from? What are the roots of this or? Where am I pulling this down from? And one last question. The Zohar Kodesh tells us, and again, this is already a hint to the ishtalshalis, to the shayrish of where this or comes from. The Zohar says, "Vayomer Elokim yihi or vayihi or." And Hashem Yisbarach said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So the Zohar says a very deep and peculiar, tight explanation of what's being said here in the Torah. We're not going to delve into the pratim, but this is what the Zohar says. Vayomer Elokim yihi or vayihi or shekvar haya. This is a light that already was. Or shekvar haya. The light that was already. What does that mean? It would seem Vayomer Elokim yihi or is the creation of the light. But the Zohar seems to be saying, no, this is not the creation of the light. This is a light which already was. What you're seeing now is just the revelation of this light. But this or kfar haya, this was an or which already preceded this memra, this amira of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's try to understand that. So to begin, let's try to understand the origins of this or. One of the great tzaddikim, Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, was a tzaddik of Pinchas Kartzer. And when we speak about the halachas of Mitzvah Hashem next week, there are different minhagim when it comes to how many candles to light. Berov Bata B'nai Yisrael, the minhag seems to be to light as many candles as there are B'nai Habayis. And that will increase as the family grows, B'siyata D'Shmaya. But in some places, it's strictly 2. Some places 4, maybe 7, 8. But the maximum amount, which is brought down in the Sfarim and the Minhagim, is to light 36 candles. I was able to see that. I had the schus to be by a very great tzaddik in my early years in Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, by Rav Chaim Brim Zatzal. We have a son named after Rav Chaim Brim. And I remember in his house, coming on Thursday night, he would spend hours making the wicks by himself and preparing the candles. And I was always very hot Friday night sitting at his Shabbos table because right behind me was 36 candles. And it was not a big room. So it was very steamy, but it was filled with Kedusha. Filled with Kedusha. The Shekhinah was very palpable there. And the Rebbetzin was a very, very big tzaddikus. And so 36 candles, Lamed Vav Neiros Shabbos, where does that come from? So Pinchas Gartzer says the following thing. He says that the very first light that Kodesh Baruch Hu created in the world, it was created on day one. But it first came into revelation on Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos was the time that Kodesh Baruch Hu revealed to the world this light. And the way that it happened was as follows. Although Adam HaRishon was chote on Erev Shabbos, this light, which was like the pride of Hashem's creation, it didn't go away from Adam until after Shabbos. And that's what the Gemara tells the story, that Adam saw that the day the sun was declining and the light was going away, and he was very afraid. And it was dark on Motzei Shabbos, and he was able to create fire. He took 2 stones, rubbed them together, which is why we light a fire on Motzei Shabbos. But there's a very big difference between a fire and a candle. The candle of Erev Shabbos, which we light in Neiros Shabbos, is because that light, Adam HaRishon and Chava, they were zeichet to that light for 24 hours on Shabbos. But on top of that, 12 hours on Erev Shabbos. Because already from Chatzos, that light is already starting to come in. I should say even before that. Like the morning time of Friday, those 12 hours of the morning of Friday, that's like Shabbos day. So when you take the 24 hours of Shabbos and the 12 hours during the day of Friday, so you have 36. 36 candles connected the 36 hours that this amazing and beautiful light illuminated the Gan Eden from Adam and Chava. And this explains to us why it is that when we light Neiros Shabbos, we do so like at the moment of the bridge between Erev Shabbos and Shabbos. It didn't have to be that way. Many women have the minhag that when they light candles on Yontif candles, that they don't do so Erev Yontif, they do so on Yontif. Because you can light a candle from a candle on Yontif. Especially when you're going in from Shabbos to Yontif. But the halacha is, on Shabbos, it has to be lit on Erev Shabbos. And again, even though Karbanos are brought on Shabbos, the Kodesh Baruch Hu could have said, you can light on Shabbos, just like you could bring Karbanos on Shabbos. No. It has to be brought at that moment where you're going from Erev Shabbos into Shabbos. Because, let's get to the depth of this or. This or is the or which was transferred from Erev Shabbos into Shabbos. It's those 36 hours of what's called the Or Hagonas, the hidden light, the light of creation. 36 candles connected these 36 hours. So we start to understand the origin and the Penimiyus of this light. We go back to Adam HaRishon, Chava, and to the Gan Eden. And Al Pi Kabbalah, Al Pi Deep Chasidus, this is precise. Because what takes place on Shabbos, the Svarim explained as what's called Aliyas Oilamus, that all the Oilamus, all the different worlds, they all go up, they return to their Shayrish. Shabbos means returning to your source. Shabbos is from the word Tshuva. Tshuva means return to your source. And everything returns to its source in Shabbos Kodesh. And so even people, Klal Yisrael, we return to our source. We become like Adam HaRishon, all the males, and all the females become like Chava, and we go back to the Gan Eden. And so there's a certain utopia which takes place on Shabbos Kodesh, where when Shabbos is kept, al pi halacha, with the proper hashkafa, so every home should feel on some level like this is Gan Eden Dik. And when it's time for Motzei Shabbos, we're not looking to rush out of Shabbos. We feel like we want to still be connected to that light. That light of Neiros Shabbos that every woman lights, although it looks like it goes out after a few hours, but in the Penimiyus, if we had the eyes to see, it illuminates the entire 36 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is. So that's the oimek of these 36 lights, Adam HaRishon, Chav, and the Gan Eden, as we explain. Secondly, we're going to give 3 hakdamas before we get to the Shayrish Advar. Why is it that an Isha lights Neiros Shabbos? So we have 3 reasons brought down in the Mefarshim. The Rambam gives the most basic reason. The basic reason why an Isha is Zaycha is because it's a mitzvah which pertains to the bias, and that's the domain of the Isha, and she's home, and he's maybe not home, or he's busy with other things. It's her mitzvah because the bias is her domain, and she is machnis the kedushin to the home. That's what the Rambam says. It's somewhat of a practical reason. Now the Gemara gives a deeper reason, and the Gemara says that Adam Harishon was called the Ner of Hashem. Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, he was the Neshama of the Bria, and Chava is held accountable for putting out that candle by giving him what to eat from the Eitz Hadas. So in order to have a tikkun for herself, and every Isha is a chelik from that Chava, so by lighting the Neiros Shabbos, it's like rekindling the Neshama of Adam Harishon. It's bringing back that greatness of Adam Harishon to the world. And that, of course, is already a deeper reason than the first reason. The Zohar Kodesh takes it one step further. And the Zohar quotes the second reason, which is the reason of the Gemara. But then the Zohar adds something fascinating. After quoting the reason of the Gemara, the Zohar says, of course, it's absolutely true. Shapir, well said. Avol Raza de Mida, but if you want to know the secret of what the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros by Anisha is, he says, the Zohar Kodesh Reb Shimon, that every woman is an embodiment of the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah is responsible for Knesset Yisrael, for all of Klal Yisrael. And in the same way that the Shekhinah takes responsibility for the Neshamas of Klal Yisrael, every single woman takes responsibility for her household. It's an achrayas which she has towards the people of the house, especially the children of the home, which is why we all know that lighting Neiros Shabbos is perhaps the most opportune time ever to be mispalel for tzaddikim, tzadkanios, yirei shamayim, nachas from children, walking the derech of avos and the imos hakdoshim. That's Gemara. That's not just a skula. The Gemara says so in Gemara and Shabbos. And this really explains the minhag why it is that a woman lights candles according to how many people are in the household, because just like the Shekhinah takes an accountability for every single neshama, every woman who's an embodiment of the Shekhinah takes an achrayus for the children of the home and for the people in the home. So we see three reasons. Again, the Rambam's reason, it's a matter of practicality. The Gemara's reason, that a woman has to be misaking that mistake of what she gave to Adam Harishon. But thirdly, which is the deepest and the most profound reason, which was what the Zohar Kodesh tells us, is that a woman needs to look at herself in her shayrish. That there's something feminine about the Shekhinah Kedusha. And the Shekhinah takes responsibility for what's called Beis Yisrael. And every woman takes responsibility to uplift and to be machnis Kedusha into every member of the bayis. We have three reasons. Introduction number 3. We won't see the relevance yet, but just bear with me. When it comes to a man's mitzvah putting on tefillin, I know this is foreign territory, but it's not too complicated. Everybody's in agreement that when putting on the tefillin shal yad, that a bracha should be made. And that goes first. When we put on the tefillin shal rosh, there's a machlokas whether or not a bracha should be said. And the bracha, if it is said, is al mitzvahs tefillin. But there's a machlokas, and as a result of that, the difference in minhagim between Acheinu b'nei Hasfardim and Ashkenazim, whether or not a bracha is said in putting on the tefillin shal rosh. The Sfardim do not make a bracha, and that's in accordance with the Arizal, and that's the derech of the Chassidim as well. But the Ashkenazim do make a bracha. But when the Ashkenazim do make a bracha, afterwards they say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Avoid. Why? Because since it's a machlokas whether or not a bracha should be said, lest it be a bracha levatala, so whenever a person Chalida should say a bracha which is levatala, so immediately one should say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Avoid, which is a way of saying that Hashem's name should be great, and therefore it's not levatala. So either a bracha is not said at all, or a bracha is said followed by Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Avoid. Now the Arizal explains, why is there no bracha when putting on the tefillin shal rosh? And he says something which is fascinating. He says, normally when we do a mitzvah, what's taking place in the spiritual domain, like behind closed doors, is that metaphorically we're reaching up grabbing a very great light, because every mitzvah is an air and an or, and we're taking it and bringing it down into this world. That's standard. However, says the Arizal, there are times, although uncommonly, that when we do the mitzvah, the light, the source of where this mitzvah comes from is so profound and so great that we can't even say about it that we're going like this, lifting up our hands and bringing it down into this world. It's not possible. Because what we're trying to reach for is so beyond, it's so far out of our reach, that we're going through a process, a seder, but that light is far, far out of our reach. It says the Arizal that when we do the mitzvah, and a man puts on the tefillin sharosh onto his head, he says the place from where that tefillin comes from, which is called like the keser, which is the crown, which is so beyond, we can't say that the action is being done by us. So therefore, says the Arizal, when you make a bracha on a mitzvah, what you do, it's because you do it. And because you do it, you make the bracha. But in this case, says the Arizal, you're not doing anything. So therefore, how can you make a bracha? Okay, so you're going through the motions of putting on the tefillin sharosh. But that's only in the physical realm. In the spiritual realm, you're not doing anything. You're kind of making a request that tefillin should come down on your head. Hashem puts it on your head. Okay, so who's going to come put your tefillin on your head for you? Hashem's going to send a malach to do that? No, we live in a world of teva. So you're going to be the one to put it on your head. But don't make a bracha because you know spiritually that you're not putting on this tefillin on your head. Hashem's putting on the tefillin on your head. So you can't make the bracha. It's not you. You can only make a bracha on what you do. So really, when we put together the minhag of the Sfardim and the minhag of the Ashkenazim, it's really like two sides of the same coin. If you don't make the bracha, that's because you're acknowledging that I'm not doing anything. If you do make the bracha, that's because you're also acknowledging that in the physical world, I'm doing something. I am putting on tefillin on my head. And I will make the bracha. Do I have to at least concede? Do I have to admit that it's Hashem who's doing it? Yes, absolutely. Therefore, Baruch Shem Kvei Machzor Lamvoi. I acknowledge the fact that although I'm putting this on my head, and I'm making the bracha, nevertheless, Baruch Shem Kvei Machzor Lamvoi means, and even the words mean, that it's all you. There's something about this which is, it's all you. With this we can explain, I hope, the depth and the beauty of what's taking place when it comes to Hadlakas Neiros. Again, let's go through the Seder. Woman comes to the Neiros, and she lights the Neiros. No bracha is made. 3 times. And then after that, hands over the eyes, and we make the bracha. Why is there no bracha said before? The reason why no bracha is said before is because, again, where is this or coming from? The or of Neiros Shabbos is coming from a place, from the first day of creation, the very first creation. Vayomer Elokim Yehi Or, Vayehi Or. The Lamed Vav Shaos, the Lamed Vav Neiros. This is Hashem's light. We can't bring down Hashem's light. We can make a request that the light comes down. But it's not like every other mitzvah where it's in arm's reach, that we lift up, and we bring it into our atmosphere. No, Neiros Shabbos is not like that. Neiros Shabbos comes from a place which is beyond human touch, beyond neshama touch. So the reason why there's no bracha is because we admit that we're not bringing down this light. That's how powerful, that's how deep, that's how profound the light of Neiros Shabbos is. And of course, we have to approach this with a gevaldik simcha. I want to just read to you the lashon of the Zohar Kodesh because it's relevant right now as we're about to explain. The Zohar says, and again, I'm jealous. A woman needs to light the Neiros Shabbos, what's called bechedva deliba, with such joy in her heart, v'reusa, and with such a pleasure to light the Neiros of Shabbos, the hayikra ilahi. It's a holy preciousness, yikra ilah. And as I explains, it's such a schus for her children and for her husband and for all of Klal Yisrael. And it's very empowering. And there's 3 reasons why a woman should feel empowered. Whether it's the Rambam's reason, whether it's the reason of the Gemara, or it's the reason of the Zohar Kodesh, which is the deepest of them all. But there's a process which is taking place. That when a woman steps up to light Neiros Shabbos, and she's infused with the schus, she's infused with the simcha that the Zohar Kodesh is describing of what it means every single Friday. It was kedai to come into the world just to do this mitzvah. And a woman has such a simcha when she's about to do this mitzvah for 3 reasons. But as she lights the Ner and she's filled with that gratitude and with that simcha, she's going through a process where she's realizing that I'm not bringing this down at all. I may be doing it on one level, but on a deeper level, it all belongs to you. It all belongs to you. And perhaps the reason why a woman goes like this 3 times is because she's saying that although there are 3 reasons why I feel so full and I feel so indebted and so grateful to you to be able to do a mitzvah like this, there's like before the fact and after the fact, and there's the transition of moving into that realm where I realize the magnitude of what's coming down right now. And it's almost like I'm saying, I'm not paying attention to that anymore. And a woman covers her eyes. And then after she makes the bracha, she opens up her eyes and there's the Neiros. It's not like she lit them. It's not like the regular way would be to say, make the bracha and light the Neiros. And then you lit it, right? Because you made the bracha, you lit it. And of course it's there. You lit it. Why would it not be there? In this case, no. You're going through a process where you're postponing the bracha. The bracha comes after your lighting. You're covering your eyes. You're opening up your eyes, and lo and behold, there's the light. You didn't light this light. You go through a process where it's there. Because before the fact, yes, you're lighting it. That's like putting on the tefillin and making a bracha. But really, the other side of the coin is, you're not lighting it. You're not putting on the tefillin. It comes onto your head by itself because it's so big and it's so deep. How could you take credit for such a thing? So when you open up your eyes and you look at the Neiros, there's an admission that the person, every woman is saying, you brought down the light. I didn't make this light. And that is indescribable. Kedushas Levi says that when a woman lights Neiros Shabbos, it's not just the beginning of Shabbos. Shabbos begins with that light. It gives a Kedusha and it lights up the entire Shabbos. It's the Pesach. It opens up the door. It's the key to unlock everything which will take place on Shabbos. How could it not? It's the physical manifestation of the light of creation. What could be bigger than that? So it could be that the husbands, they go to shul and they daven and they're learning Torah and they're doing a lot and there's many things that's being done. But in this case, there's one thing which is being done which is really the source from where all of that light is being drawn from. It's the key. It's the portal. But it's something which is way, way beyond us. So we go through that seder of simcha, feeling the gratitude, feeling the empowerment of what it means to have the opportunity to have a connection to this light. But what the seder of the Hadlakas is telling us is that there's a transformation which is taking place, that by the time the seder is over and you're looking at the lights, you'd say, it's here. It wasn't me. You brought it down. And that's really what the Zohar means when we go back to what the Zohar said. The Zohar said about this light. The Zohar says, Kfar Haya, it was already. I mean, Hashem may have revealed the light on day 6. And that's when he gave it to Adam. That's when Adam and Chava were zeichet to see that light. But it was a light which was already on day 1. And it could even have preceded day 1, from what it seems like from other side. Meaning, wherever you think that it is, it really came before that. And that's the experience which every woman has when she lights the Ner Shabbos and she goes through that process, that when she opens up her eyes after going through the Seder and the lights are there, you say about that light, Kfar Haya, it was already there. I was just a keli to be able to bring it down, to participate on some level, but it's all you. And Baruch Hashem, it's all you. Because if it was me, it would only be in accordance to my madrega, because I can only produce kafi what I am. But if it's you who's bringing it down, it could be far, far beyond my madrega, because you're the one bringing it down and it's not me. Perhaps this is why that al pi halacha, a woman only needs to light 1 candle to be yotze the mitzvah. We light 2 for zachav v'shamar. But it could be the reason why there are 2 lights, and this is even without getting into detail, represented by zachav v'shamar, is because there's 2 sides of the same coin. It's like 1 light, but there's 2 lights. There's the light, which is my chelik in the process, but then there's the other light, which is that this is purely Hashem's light. One of the things that the Zohar Kodesh adds when it speaks about this schos of lighting Neiros Shabbos, the Zohar says, what a great schos, lemiski lebinin kadishin, to have holy children who will be born into the world, but who already have been born, that they should be tzaddikim and tikkanios, with the light of Torah and Yerushalayim. V'yizgun shalom ba'ara. And there should be shalom in the land. There should be shalom in the land. So befrat at a time like this, where there's so much going on in the world, and we feel Mashiach vibes, maybe. Yeah, of course, we don't know what Hashem Yisbarach wants, but there's a lot of simanim. When the war started, Hoshana Rabbah, Shemini Atzeres, and I'm sure many of you have heard about this in but there's something going on in the world right now. And Klal Yisrael, we feel it. And it's befrat in Eretz Yisrael that there's a very grave sakana for, not just for the soldiers, but anybody who's living in Eretz Yisrael. And we feel that. We feel that we're all in this army of Hashem, and we're being called to action in a very deep and unique way, something which we haven't experienced before. But it's interesting, the Zohar adds, V'yizgun shalom ba'ara. When we speak about, as the Gemara does, the skulos of Ner Shabbos is that there should be shalom bayis. There should be shalom bayis. So every woman can ask themselves, and every Jew should ask themselves, like, what's the extent of my bias? What's the extent of my bias? And the more that a woman, befrat, is connected to what we had said before, to the Shechina Kodesh, because a woman, if she sees herself in a very Penimiyus sense, it's the greatest chos in the world to be a direct kesher to the Shechina Kodesh herself. The bias of the Shechina HaKadosh is all of Knesset Yisrael. And that's why when the Zohar explains the lighting of Neiros Shabbos, the Zohar paints the picture of that every woman in her household is like the Shechina taking a chayes for Kol Beis Yisrael. For Kol Beis Yisrael. So, in the same way that lighting Neiros Shabbos is a skula for Shalom Bayis, which means my home, this location where I'm lighting right now, but in a more Penimiyus sense, in a deeper sense, when we go to its roots, it's the same thing. It's my tefillah for the members of my household that there should be Shalom Bayis here. What that means, in a deeper way, is it's the Shechina Kodesh pleading before Kudsha Brichu, so to speak, that there should be Shalom Kol Beis Yisrael. There should be Shalom Bayis. There should be Pasha Shalom Bayis in Klal Yisrael. V'nasati Shalom Ba'aretz. If Yizgun Shalom Ba'aretz, the Zohar Kodesh says. So befrat at a time like this, and I'm sure it's already on all your minds, I'm not telling you any chidushim, but I was able to see in going through many svarim and seeing many stories, and you know many stories of your own and many things about this as well, but it may take just a few seconds, the whole Seder Hadvar. But packed into just a few seconds is such a gavaldic or, like we're explaining right now, but it's a moment which defies time, space, reality. I think it's safe to say that the single most important moment during the week of how we can impact our family and Klal Yisrael is Neiros Shabbos. It seems that way. It seems that way. I mean, you're sitting in front of this light, which is you're sitting in front of Lefnei Hashem. It's like you're bringing on this light of Hashem. You're sitting in front of it. You're talking. It's like a Shemona Esrei. It's like you're sitting in front of this light, and it's a tefillah. It's a tefillah. Hashem Yisbarach that take care of everything. Especially when we acknowledge the fact that this is a light which I can't bring down. I'm bringing down such a metzias that it's in your hands, it's in your control. I think there's another nakuda which is very deep, profound, which I feel compelled to share, and then we'll conclude with this. Is that the tzaddikim say that they were able to see within the Neiros Shabbos the future. That the lights speak to them what's going to happen. They're able to see in these Neiros Shabbos what's going to happen during the week, what's going to happen in the future. There was one tzaddik, and I think this is true of many tzaddikim, the Or HaMeir. He said, when he started to be Baal Madrega, and he started to see within the Neiros Shabbos future events that were going to happen, he turned to Kodesh Baruch Hu and he says, I'm not doing this for that. Meaning, I appreciate the Madregas, and it's very nice to be Baal Baruch Kodesh and to see into the future, but I'm not in it for that. And he asked Hashem to take away the Madregas of seeing into the future. Something we spoke about recently in the shul, which is that the Madrega of Bitachon is higher than Ruach HaKodesh. But aside from that, What's higher than being about Ruach HaKodesh is to having nachas from children. Is to have nachas from children. Is to have shalom bayis in the home. That's an even higher madrig than being about Ruach HaKodesh. And so many times, when the tzaddik is starting to see madrigas in Ruach HaKodesh, he's starting to see, wow, these neighbors are telling me such big things. When it starts to take away, because as the Sfarim say, Rav Yehoshua from Liechtenstein, he said that it's very hard that you find in one place to be Baruch HaKodesh and to have nachas from your children. It doesn't always come easy both. So the tzaddikim say that I appreciate the gift and the gesture and giving me Ruach HaKodesh to see these neighbors, but I don't want these neighbors to be for that. I want these neighbors to be for something more than that, which is for the shalom bayis and for the tzaddikim and the tzidkanis which will come from the home. So when a person is able to make sacrifices on that level and to be mispalu and to say that this is my priority. I want that there should be shalom. I want that there should be children who walk on the derech Hashem. And again, we don't have to be Baalei Ruach HaKodesh to have that opportunity. But if we feel that way when we're sitting there and we know that we can ask for anything in the world because we're sitting in front of the master of the world, that's the light which is in front of us, and we say the Hiratzim, and we beg the Rebbeinu Shalom, we say we should walk in the derech Hashem. They should just walk in your footsteps. This is the tefillah of Avram Avinu. Why did Hashem choose Avram? Because the Manitzav es banav es beisu achav lishma derech Hashem. Because Avram Avinu was invested. He was invested in what's going to be for the Eibishter when I'm not here. That's what he was invested in. So that type of feeling that a woman has when she's in front of the Neiros and she feels like, this is my moment to be able to tell you what matters most to me. And I want that they should be Talmid Chachamim, and Yiras Shamayim, it's Tzidkanios, and to give you nachas. It's not about my nachas, it's about your nachas. Certainly that should be answered. And we have in mind, especially at a time like this, for all of Klal Yisrael, that we're not just worried about our bias, but about Beis Yisrael, Bechlalos, the Shechin HaKadosh's bias. So in that schos, we should be zeichet, not to see shalom, not just in our homes, but Hashem should have shalom in His home and in His world. And in the same way that the Zohar Kodesh says about the Beis HaMikdash, by Shlomo HaMelech, it says about the Beis HaMikdash, Bihi bano so. It didn't say that he built the Beis HaMikdash. It says that it was built on its own, because who can build the Beis HaMikdash? Only Hashem can build the Mikdash. And the same way that these lights, every Erev Shabbos, come down into the world because Hashem has to bring it, so too the Beis HaMikdash. Bihi bano so. What that means grammatically is it was built by itself. Shlomo didn't build the Beis HaMikdash, but it took 7 years to build it. 7 is like Shabbos. No, it didn't take 7 years. Hashem built it. Hashem built that bias. Hashem really is what builds every bias, but especially the bias Ashlishi, which we're so anxiously awaiting. It's going to come down from Shemayim to be clear that Hashem built that bias. We should be zeichet too. Very, very soon. We'll become Mashiach Tzidkenu.